system, and a host of other signs that the apocalypse is near. Almost uniformly, the belief among right-wing religious extremists is that the federal government is an arm of Satan. Therefore, the millennium will bring about a battle between Christian martyrs and the government. At the core of this volatile mix is the belief of apocalyptic religions and cults that the battle against Satan, as prophesied in the book of Revelation, will begin in 2000. An example of the confrontational nature and belief system of religiously motivated suspects illustrates the unique challenges that law enforcement faces when dealing with a fatalist martyr philosophy. It also illustrates the domino effect that may occur after such a confrontation. Gordon Carl, an adherent to the anti-government racist Christian identity religion, escaped after a 1983 shootout with police that left 2 deputy U.S. Marshals dead. He was later killed during a subsequent shootout with the FBI and others that also left a county sheriff dead. In response to the killing of Carl, Bob Matthews, a believer in the racist Odinist ideology, founded the Order. After the Order committed numerous crimes, its members were eventually tracked down. Matthews escaped after engaging in a gun battle and later wrote, "Why are so many men so eager to destroy their own kind for the benefit of the Jews and the mongrels? I see 3 FBI agents hiding behind some trees. I could have easily killed them. They look like good racial stock, yet all their talents are given to a government which is openly trying to mongrelize the very race these agents are part of. I have been a good soldier, a fearless warrior. I will die with honor and join my brothers in heaven." Exemplifying his beliefs as a martyr, Matthews later burned to death in an armed standoff with the FBI. In light of the enormous amount of millennial rhetoric, the FBI sought to analyze a number of variables that have the potential to spark violent acts perpetrated by domestic terrorists. Religious beliefs, the Y2K computer problem, and gun control laws all have the potential to become catalysts for such terrorism. The following elements are essential to understanding the phenomenon of domestic terrorism related to the millennium. When does the new millennium begin? As the nation and the world prepare to celebrate the arrival of the new millennium, a debate has arisen as to the correct date for its beginning. Although the true starting point of the next millennium is January 1, 2001, as established by the U.S. Naval Observatory in Washington, D.C., our nation's official timekeeper, many will celebrate January 1, 2000, as the start of the millennium. The majority of domestic terrorists, like the general public, place a greater significance on January 1, 2000. Blueprint for action. The Turner Diaries. 5 Charles Bosworth Jr., Illinois man, sought start of race war, Street. Louis Post Dispatch, March 15, 1998. 6 Paul Duggan, from beloved son to murder suspect, The Washington Post, February 16, 1999. 8 Many right-wing extremists are inspired by the Turner Diaries, a book written by William Pierce under the pseudonym Andrew MacDonald, the leader of the white supremacist group National Alliance. The book details the violent overthrow of the federal government by white supremacists and also describes a brutal race war that is to take place simultaneously. To date, several groups or individuals have been inspired by this book. At the time of his arrest, Timothy McVeigh, the man responsible for the Oklahoma City bombing, had a copy of the Turner Diaries in his possession. McVeigh's action against the Murrah Federal Building was strikingly similar to an event described in the book where the fictional terrorist group blows up FBI headquarters. The Order, an early 1980s terrorist cell involved in murder, robberies, and counterfeiting, was motivated by the book's scenarios for a race war. The group murdered Alan Berg, a Jewish talk show host, and engaged in other acts of violence in order to hasten the race war described in the book. The Order's efforts later inspired another group, the New Order, which planned to commit similar crimes in an effort to start a race war that would lead to a violent revolution. 5 Most recently, the Turner Diaries provided inspiration to John William King, the man convicted for dragging a black man to his death in Jasper, Texas. As King shackled James Bird's legs to the back of his truck, he was reported to say, "We're going to start the Turner Diaries early." 6 During the year 2000 and beyond, the Turner Diaries will be an inspiration for right-wing terrorist groups to act because it outlines both a revolutionary takeover of the government and a race war. These elements of the book appeal to a majority of right-wing extremists because it is their belief that one or both events will coincide with Y2K. Interpretations of the Bible. Religiously based domestic terrorists use the New Testament's book of Revelation, the prophecy of the end time, for the foundation of their belief in the apocalypse. Religious extremists interpret the symbolism portrayed in the book of Revelation and mold it to predict that the end time is now and that the apocalypse is near. To understand many religious extremists, it is crucial to know the origin of the book of Revelation and the meanings of its words, numbers and characters. 7. While he never claimed to be the book's author, the Apostle John was identified as such by several of the early church fathers. Authorship is generally ascribed to him today. 8. This interpretation of the book of Revelation is according to the Catholic Bible and a Catholic scholar that was consulted on the matter. However, there are other varying interpretations of the book of Revelation within Christianity. 9. All symbolism was taken from the Catholic Bible, New American Bible. 9. The book of Revelation was written by a man named John who was exiled by the Roman government to a penal colony, the island of Patmos, because of his beliefs in Christ. 7. While on the island, he experienced a series of visions described in the book of Revelation. The writing in the book of Revelation is addressed to churches who were at the time experiencing or were threatened by persecution from Rome because they were not following the government. For this reason, some believe the book of Revelation was written in code language, much of which was taken from other parts of the Bible. One interpretation describing the essence of the message contained in Revelation is that God will overcome Christianity's enemies, Roman government, Satan, and that the persecuted communities should persevere. 8. For right-wing groups who believe they are being persecuted by the satanic government of the United States, the book of Revelation's message fits perfectly into their worldview. This worldview, in combination with a literal interpretation of the book of Revelation, is reflected in extremist ideology, violent acts, and literature. For this reason, it is imperative to know the meaning of some of the code words frequently used. C44 signifies the world. C66 signifies imperfection. C77 is the totality of perfection or fullness and completeness. C1212 represents the 12 tribes of Israel or the 12 apostles. C1000 signifies immensity. C. The color white symbolizes power and can also represent victory, joy and resurrection. C. The color red symbolizes a bloody war. C. The color black symbolizes famine. C. A rider on a pale green horse is a symbol of death itself. Babylon is the satanic Roman government, now used to describe the U.S. government. 9. Black Hebrew Israelites, a black supremacist group, typify the use of numerology from the book of Revelation. They believe group members will comprise the 144,000 people who are saved by God in the second coming that is outlined in Revelation 7:1-17. In the book of Revelation, John is shown a vision of 144,000 martyrs who have survived and did not submit to Satan. This number is derived from the assertion that the 12 tribes of Israel consisted of 12,000 people each. 10. Kerry Noble, Tabernacle of Hate, Why They Bombed Oklahoma City. Prescott, Ontario, Canada, Voyager Publishing, 1998. 11. Robert Draper, Happy Doomsday, Texas Monthly, July 1997, p.74. Evan Moore, A House Divided, Tensions Divide Abilene Area Cult, The Houston Chronicle, March 24, 1996. 12. Evan Moore, A House Divided, Tensions Divide Abilene Area Cult, The Houston Chronicle, March 24, 1996. 13. John K. Wiley, Profile of Attack Suspect is Familiar and Frightening, The Miami Herald, August 12, 1999. 10. Groups not only use the Bible to interpret the end times, but use it to justify their ideology. Phineas Priests, an amorphous group of Christian identity adherents, base their entire ideology on chapter 25 of the Book of Numbers. The passage depicts a scene where Phineas kills an Israelite who was having relations with a Midianite woman, and God then granted Phineas and all of his descendants a pledge of everlasting priesthood. Modern-day followers of the Phineas priest ideology believe themselves to be the linear descendants of Phineas, and this passage gives them biblical justification to punish those who transgress God's laws. Therefore, the group is ardently opposed to race mixing and strongly believes in racial separation. The number 25 is often used as a symbol of the group. Apocalyptic religious beliefs. To understand the mindset of why religious extremists would actively seek to engage in violent confrontations with law enforcement, the most common extremist ideologies must be understood. Under these ideologies, many extremists view themselves as religious martyrs who have a duty to initiate or take part in the coming battles against Satan. Domestic terrorist groups who place religious significance on the millennium believe the federal government will act as an arm of Satan in the final battle. By extension, The FBI is viewed as acting on Satan's behalf. The philosophy behind targeting the federal government or entities perceived to be associated with it is succinctly described by Kerry Noble, a former right-wing extremist. He says the right-wing envision a dark and gloomy end-time scenario, where some Antichrist makes war against Christians. 10. The House of Yahweh, a Texas-based religious group whose leaders are former members of the tax-protesting posse Comitatus, is typical. Hawkins, the leader, has interpreted biblical scripture that the Israeli peace accord signed on October 13, 1993, has started a 7-year period of tribulation which will end on October 14, 2000, with the return of the Yeshua the Messiah. 11. He also has interpreted that the FBI will be the downfall of the House of Yahweh and that the Waco Branch Davidian raids in 1993 were a warning to the House of Yahweh from the federal government, which he terms the beast. 12. Similarly, Richard Butler, leader of the white supremacist group Aryan Nations, said the following when asked what might have motivated the daycare shooting by Buffalo. Farrow Jr., one of his group's followers, their SA war against the white race. Their SA war of extermination against the white male. 13. The New World Order conspiracy theory in the year 2000 computer bug. 14. Use of this term within militia circles became more common after President Bush started using it to refer to the state of world affairs after the collapse of the USSR at the end of the Cold War and in the context of using international organizations to assist in governing international relations. The term One World Government is also used as a synonym for the New World Order. 11. Unlike religiously based terrorists, militia anxiety and paranoia specifically relating to the year 2000 are based mainly on a political ideology. Some militia members read significance into 2000 as it relates to their conception of the NWO conspiracy. 14. The NWO conspiracy theory holds that the United Nations UN will lead a military coup against the nations of the world to form a socialist or one world government. UN troops, consisting mostly of foreign armies, will commence a military takeover of America. The UN will mainly use foreign troops on American soil because foreigners will have fewer reservations about killing American citizens. US armed forces will not attempt to stop this invasion by UN troops and, in fact, the US military may be deputized as a branch of the UN armed forces. The American military contingent overseas will also play a large part in this elaborate conspiracy theory, as they will be used to help conquer the rest of the world. The rationale for this part of the theory is that American soldiers will also have less qualms about killing foreigners, as opposed to killing their own citizens. Under this hypothetical NWO One World Government, the following events are to take place. 1. Private property rights and private gun ownership will be abolished. 2. All national, state and local elections will become meaningless, since they will be controlled by the UN. 3. The U.S. Constitution will be supplanted by the UN Charter. 4. Only approved churches and other places of worship will be permitted to operate and will become appendages of the one world religion, which will be the only legitimate doctrine of religious beliefs and ethical values. 5. Homeschooling will be outlawed and all school curriculum will need to be approved by the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization UNESCO, and 6. American military bases and other federal facilities will be used as concentration camps by the UN to confine those patriots, including the militias, who defy the NWO. Other groups beside the UN that are often mentioned as being part of the NWO conspiracy theory are Jews, Communists, the Council on Foreign Relations, the Bilderbergers and the Trilateral Commission. Law enforcement officials will probably notice different versions of this theory, depending upon the source. The NWO conspiracy theory is particularly relevant to the millennium because the year 2000 is considered to be a triggering device for the NWO due to the element of computer breakdown. Many computers around the world are based on a numerical system in which the year is only registered by the last 2 digits. A number of militia members accept the theory that on January 1, 2000, many computers will misinterpret this date as January 1, 1900, and malfunction and/or shut down completely. They further believe that these major computer malfunctions will cause widespread chaos at all levels of socioeconomic, social and political. This chaos will theoretically create a situation in which American civilization will collapse, which will then produce an environment that the UN will exploit to forcibly take over the United States. Therefore, these militia members as well as